business and the establishment of a number of businesses internationally for Macquarie. He speaks fluent Arabic and has been involved in many Middle East-based projects. Barry has also worked on the establishment of property funds management platforms and raised capital from sovereign wealth funds. Barry also rolled out the Middle East expansion strategy for an Australian-listed entity and more recently advised on several property and mining and manufacturing projects. As a partner in ATEC Extrusion Systems, Barry is currently working with ATEC executive Charlie Ibrahim to establish an aluminium extrusion, powder coating, and associated businesses in Orange, New South Wales. An ATEC-related entity purchased the old Electrolux site where operations will be established. Barry is a semi-retired, spends most of his time on a pro bono basis for not-for-profit organizations. In this capacity, Barry is Vice Chair of Maronite Care Australia since 2016, Director of Our Lady Aged Care Centre since 2013, Chair of Kadishat Housing since 2018, was a founding Director of St. Charbel Care Centre, Director of the Italian Opera Foundation since 2015. Barry was born in Kfar, Lebanon. His formative years were spent in his ancestral village of Kfar, where Barry's family lived for 10 years. In 1975, the family migrated back to Australia and have remained here ever since. However, Barry makes an effort to visit family and friends in Lebanon every year. Barry Barakat, it's a pleasure and an honor to host you at Kalimat Al-Jali program. Ahla wa sahla feek. And it's really, I'm excited and looking forward to this interview with you.
Thank you, Sarkis. Thank you for having me. I'll just make one slight correction. I was born in Sydney, not Kfar.
Okay.
And we left Australia when I was a year old.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, that's great. So you say you speak fluent Arabic, and of course, going back frequently to Lebanon, you've built up the interaction with Kfar and with Lebanon as your motherland. What can you tell us? What motivate people, to not just grow with this interaction with Lebanon, but also to love the motherland so much for a person who is born here in Australia?
Yeah. So, Sarkis, whilst I was born in Sydney, I spent most of my formative years in Lebanon. So Liye, is very much a Lebanese one. So for me, I hold very dearly the relationships that were built when I was young. And I think many people who are first and second generation Lebanese who have traveled to Lebanon find that, جو الاجتماعي that exists in Lebanon, which is something that we hold very dear. So we always enjoy going back to Lebanon to being with friends and family, particularly in the villages in the north of Lebanon.
When was the last time you were there?
I was there just recently, in fact, for 5 weeks in July and August this year.
And how do you compare it to previous visits, like the situation, the political situation, the economic situation? How do you compare it to previous visits?
Well, from the political side, I prefer to sort of leave that aside, and I can sort of speak about the economic situation. Having traveled to Lebanon, virtually for every year at least once or twice, you get a sense of change that's taking place from year to year. And what I've noticed, Sarkis, is that there seems to be a disappearance of the middle class. And in any country around the world where you visit and you see a reduction of the middle class, then that is, from an economic perspective, that they are dangerous signs. It's the middle class that actually holds up the economy. So when you see the middle class, moving downwards, and a small proportion of the population increasing their wealth at the top end, that doesn't bode well economically for a country. And I think when you sort of see the recent situation where banks in Lebanon are offering exorbitantly high rates for US dollar deposits, that again, the alarm bells should be ringing, because that is abnormal.
Can you elaborate a bit more at this point?
Yes, absolutely. There's a thing in finance called arbitrage. So if around the world, if there's a differential in interest rates that are being offered by the banks, huge funds would transfer money to those accounts to take advantage of higher funds. Thereby, the money market evens things out internationally. So when around the world US dollar deposits are offering, 1.5%, for example, and in Lebanon they're offering 7.5% to 10% and increasing, then something is not normal in that market, and that should ring alarm bells. The international fund money is not flowing to Lebanon, and there's a dislocation in the market, and that is scary.
What should be done, with your experience,
yes,
with your success in the banking sector? What should be done to save or rescue Lebanon from total collapse?
I think, you can only work on things economically if things politically are sorted out. So from a political side of things, if you have accountability for how the country is run, then you can start to build on that. So unless you have accountability for people's actions in Lebanon, it's very difficult to get it right economically.
So in this sense, this what they call it uprising, protest,
yes,
which includes students,
yes,
all walks of life. Would that, in your opinion, lead to the reform of the political sector, and eventually this will sort of impact positively on the economy?
Well, I think that's what people are hoping this happens. My view is that I cannot see what how things are going to pan out. But certainly, I think the situation at the moment in respect of basic services and utilities, electricity and water and wages and employment and so forth, the impression I get is that people have had enough. And they would like to see some sort of changes for the better. Whether it's under the current structure of the government or some other structure of the government, I don't know the answer to that.
Right. It's very imperative that the situation in Lebanon, talking about the economic sense of things, for investors from overseas, from Sydney, from all over the world, what's the basics that should be available in Lebanon to make an investor encouraged to invest?
It's actually a very good question, Sakis, because the experience throughout the Middle East and countries that I would say are emerging countries, international investors, more than anything else, want to be able to rely on the rule of law. So they want to be able to rely on a contract. They want to be able to make sure that, banks, the financial system and the legal system upholds their rights. So lots of people are reluctant to invest in third world, notwithstanding the current economic and political situation, but they want to be able to rely on the rule of law and stability in an economy. And, unless you see that, it's very difficult to attract international investment.
Some investors say, the basic stuff, even the electricity, the paperwork in government department, all of that is such an obstacle. Absolutely. That also discourage people from investing.
Exactly. I assisted a listed Australian company to establish an office in Lebanon, and I also assisted that company with the establishment of offices throughout the Middle East and Turkey.
Yes.
So comparatively speaking, the difficulty in establishing the office in Lebanon and getting approvals for phone lines, just basic things that you require, approvals for the construction and renovation of the buildings and so forth, was an absolute nightmare. And I think, these are the sorts of things that companies find difficult to understand, given how they do things and how they're used to doing things in a place like Australia.
So in a nutshell, we want things to be done simpler and easier.
Absolutely.
For people to go and establish businesses and companies.
Absolutely. And, I think from the people that I talk to, if you find that there is a streamlined way of doing business in Lebanon and some of those obstacles are overcome, a lot of people's hearts are still in Lebanon. People want to invest, but you just need to find the right environment for them.
Exactly. Are you involved in any way with sort of trade connections between Australia and Lebanon? Anything to do with, of course, you're in the banking sector, or you were. Was there any communication or any work, any cooperation between Australia and Lebanon in this regard?
Not personally. I didn't sort of look to, I didn't have any experience in trying to do anything between Lebanon and Australia. I always found it very difficult to do things other than assisting this company establishing an office in Lebanon, which was successfully done. But it was, as a result of a lot of hard work and lots of obstacles, which, I wouldn't want to repeat. But, that's not to say that heading down the track opportunities may not come up that we may want to take advantage of.
Okay. Before we move into the aged care center in Australia, I'm sure for you to keep going back to Lebanon, there's some sort of personal enjoyment there. There's some sort of relaxation. How could that be, in the midst of all the difficulties and obstacles that Lebanon experiences?
That is the conundrum that is Lebanon. There's always a soft spot for Lebanon in our hearts. And, for me, what I enjoy is going back to my village. I don't so much care for going to Beirut. Phyllis, that's right. So, remembering the things that I did when we were young and spending time with friends and, playing cards and, going through the apple orchards and the olive plantations, are things that are, embedded in our mind. So I really enjoy going back and spending as much time with people in the village as possible. So I'm quite happy remaining in the village, just doing, the basic things that we used to do when I was young as well.
It's beautiful. Barry, I know you're very much involved in the aged care center in Our Lady. What could you tell us about the history of the care center, which was around 30 beds, then it was closed, now it's a new project all over again, and you're very much involved into this project. What can you tell us about it?
Yes. Well, initially we got into the aged care game when His Excellency Bishop Tarabai was Father Superior of St. Charbel. And, through the demands from the community that were making at that time to His Reyes at the time, we established the St. Charbel Care Center.
So that was before Bishop Tarabai
became bishop. Right. So when Bishop Tarabai was Father Superior, we established the St. Charbel Care Center, and we got approved provider status and won 80 beds for that care center. And I'm happy to say that that center is now being built and it's now operating, which is a great thing for the community. When Sayyidina became Sayyidina, his vision expanded to consider aged care for the wider community. So with the Epicy, there was an existing care centre at Harris Park, just behind the car park. It's on Alfred Street, actually, in Harris Park. Now, historically, I'm not sure of the reason why it shut down, but it was that site was approved for aged care services. It operated for 30 beds for a number of years, and then it was closed down. So when we looked at developing an aged care centre, the important things to us, and to Sayyidina particularly, is that most of the people that are going to be using the aged care centre are going to be from the Maronite first and second generation background. So it was very, very important for them to have a place where they can be close to a church, and that place was ideal for us. So when we made an assessment of the existing facilities, we did not comply with modern regulations as far as healthcare is concerned. So for us to make the amendments, it would have been more expensive than simply knocking it down and starting up again. So we formed a company, and we were happy to get approved provider status, and we won 90 beds for that particular facility. 3 times the size. Well, 80 beds in St. Charbel, 90 beds, so 3 times the size of the existing facility. And, I'm happy to say that we're about to commence construction. We should be executing construction contracts within the next 2 or 3 weeks, God willing.
And how long would that take before it's all completed?
The timetable for construction will be approximately 18 months. God willing, we should be operating, say, by July 2021. Which is, a fantastic thing for the community. And, may I add, Sarkis, that we are hoping, with a successful operation of St. Hannibal and Our Lady Aged Care Centre, that we actually develop quite a few more centres, because one of the things that I forgot to mention is the reason we went down this path with His Excellency Bishop Tarabai is because, people in the government were advising him that two of the most underserviced communities in aged care, in terms of, ethnic communities, were the Lebanese and the Chinese. You see, the likes of Scalabrini and Simbabwe, and, the Italian and Greek communities have been in aged care for a long time. So really, for our first generation community, we had only the Sisters of the Holy Family operation in Dulwich Hill and Marrickville. So there was a substantial need for community-based aged care, and hence the decision to go into that area.
So having just 2 aged care centres, really not enough for such a large community, but at least you stepping in the right direction. How are you going to manage this aged care centre once it's finished? I've heard, if you can tell the listeners about home care, and what's home care has got to do with the aged centre, if it's possible.
Absolutely. Well, aged care is expensive.
Yeah.
In aged care centres, and it's expensive for governments as well as, so the government spends an inordinate amount of money supporting the elderly in aged care centres. So the government's embarked on a program called Aging in Place, which means that they would like the elderly to stay home for as long as possible before it necessitates a move to an aged care centre. It's cheaper for the government, but also it's much more beneficial for the elderly and their families, because they prefer to stay at home anyway with their loved ones. So with this program, what we've developed in association with Catholic Care is home care, which is due to be launched on the 1st of December, God willing. And it is home care as part of Maronite Care. And Maronite Care, as you know, Sarkis, is the social welfare arm of our church. And home care is the initiative where, with a single telephone number or a visit to Our Lady of Lebanon initially, but hopefully then to the other parishes, is the elderly can apply for home care. They can, make inquiries about home care. And with the backup support of Catholic Care, we will be providing Arabic, Maronite, Arabic-speaking people to help them with the assessment and to help them with the care at home. So we think this is a wonderful initiative for our community.
So it really makes the process very quicker and easier for people.
Absolutely, but it also helps them to interact with people who are of Maronite faith and Arabic-speaking background, which I think some of our community people may feel a little bit more comfortable with. And, once you've got them in that program with home care, then at the appropriate time, they can be guided into the aged care centres, whether it's in Hannibal Sisters of the Holy Family or at Harris Park or some other future place that we might develop.
Excellent. Maronite Care,
yes.
You're the Vice Chair of Maronite Care. Can you tell us more about its role, who's on the Executive Committee, what does it do, how it's funded?
Absolutely. Maronite Care is, so for, if you think of, what Catholic Care do or Anglican. So Maronite Care is the similar version to those organizations, but it is the social welfare arm of our church. Its chair is Anthony Curry. Anthony was the honorary consul to Bangladesh and, a very well-known, very well-connected gentleman. And our executive officer is Deacon Joseph Mato. Again, Joseph is an extremely hardworking, Deacon Joseph is an extremely hardworking individual. And the secretary to the board is Dori Zug, and he's a subdeacon, and he is also heavily involved in the programs. So Maronite Care, I'll just give you an example. Since 2017, Maronite Care has held over 2,000 counselling sessions. They've assisted, more than 800 people and their families in the areas of, counselling support for, addiction and whether it's gambling or domestic violence, marital support and various other, and they provide this service free of charge. And what we've seen, the numbers of people needing help is increasing dramatically. And, we are struggling to try and sort of, hold it at the seams with the funding that we have. We get some funding from the government through grants, and we're trying to increasingly find other avenues to get increasing grants from the government. We certainly get donations, and we are grateful for people who provide those donations to us. But we also run annual events where we try and raise some funds. So I might sort of just take a point to give a plug to our latest fundraising effort. So we have a raffle that we have for a beautiful Audi car where we're selling tickets through the parishes, and tickets are $50 each, or a book is $500, and it's going towards a fantastic cause where we will continually provide this free service to our community. So you can purchase tickets either at your local parishes or visiting our website, which is www.maronitecare.org.au. And again, we are grateful for the support of the community.
And they can also donate online?
Absolutely. They can donate. They can contact the office and donate, and donations are tax deductible.
Okay, so now with the increased demand on your services, of course, the budget is struggling. Now, with this raffle, how long would that give you a sort of lifeline financially? I'm talking about.
I mean, it depends on how much we raise, but I mean, within months we will need to look at other avenues of funding.
Okay.
So we're not talking about raising money that we can sit back for a couple of years and and hope for the best. As much as we'd like that, we suspect that it's going to be a matter of months that'll give us some support. So, we will be looking in the interim period with the chair, Anthony Curry, and the executive officer, and Deacon Joseph. And I neglected to mention, I'm sorry, that Monsignor Marcelino is the Vicar General is also on our board, and he's a very big supporter of ours. Apologise for forgetting Monsignor Marcelino, and naturally Sayidna, is there with us as well at all the meetings. So collectively, we're all trying to sort of work on the program of expanding how we raise funds and how we provide services to the community.
So the priorities for that community, like the community, really, there's so many charitable organizations and fundraisers and stuff. How can you, or how do you highlight priority of Maronite Care, what Maronite Care is doing?
Look, that's a very good question, because every charity has its place in the community. So for us, we just have to make our message a little bit clearer, and I think Monsignor Marcelino and the chair Anthony are doing a fantastic job in that. Clearly the rest of the board as well, with myself, we're out there advising the community of the benefits of what we're doing. And I think we the only thing we can do is just continue to sort of pass that message along, that these are the sorts of services that we're providing to the community. And I think one thing that the community has to realize is, in the absence of these services, what happens to the people that require those services?
And you're talking about 800 families.
We're talking about,
it's not a small number.
Exactly, and it is increasing. It is increasing.
And we're talking about specialists who cost a lot to give the time. It's not just volunteering. You're paying specialists to deal with those situations.
Exactly. I mean, counselling is performed by accredited specialists who have experience in this particular area, and they need to be paid for their service. I mean, many of them, do try and assist as much as they can, but they have to provide for their families as well, and they're paid accordingly.
This is why we urge the community to, as always, give and donate and contribute to Maronite Care, because this is a very good cause. This is a really It's just incredible what's been done to help those people in need. Barry Barakat, the Australian Lebanese, what's he doing as director of the Italian Opera Foundation?
If I had a dollar for every time I was asked that question,
Exactly.
I'd have a lot of money.
And you give it to Maronite Care.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, I always say this, that boards should have people of varied backgrounds with different experiences. And I suppose, firstly, whilst I do enjoy Italian opera, I don't profess to be an expert in Italian opera, but there are people on the board who are experts in Italian opera. So my contribution to the board of the Italian Opera Foundation of Australia is, in the areas of my specialty. But the way that I got involved with the Italian Opera Foundation is that its chair is Mr. Joseph Rizet, who's the CEO of the Arab Bank. So another Lebanese person.
A banking colleague as well.
And a banking associate. He became chair some time ago, and he's worked very hard to expand the board with relevant people. I mean, historically, and you have to give credit to the people who founded the foundation, the likes of Nick Scarley and people like that. But I think sort of over the years it just became a little bit stale. So Joe has sort of rejuvenated the board, and we're doing some wonderful things with young talent in Australia. And the charter of the opera is to assist young Australians to improve their operatic performance in Italian opera. Yeah. So really, it's every year or every second year, we award something like $40,000 to $50,000 to a young opera singer from Australia, and we send them to Italy to the maestries that suit their style of voice to improve their operatic talent. And we're very pleased to be able to do that.
Wow, that's amazing. Apart from the Italian Opera Foundation, what other organizations you're involved in, apart, of course, from Maronite Care? Do you sort of attend Lebanese functions, Lebanese charities?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, through the work that we do in aged care and for Maronite Care, and I'm a member of the Maronite Catholic Society, proudly so, and we get exposure to the community. So where we can assist, we do so. And I pride myself in trying to at least try to attend, every function that is held for the community. And, whether they are political parties or whether they are fundraisers for charities and so forth. Because I think if you want to sell your message about what you're doing, then you need to be known in the community. So, clearly Sayyidina and Monsignor Marcelino on behalf of Maronite Care, but, with the chair and myself, which, we're out there and we make ourselves, visible so that we send that message across to as many people as we can. So I think it's important for us to mix in the community and send the message about Maronite Care.
Recently, Father Hannibal visited Sydney, and I've noticed that you were with him most of the time. Is it that you've Father Aboud brought something from Lebanon close to your heart, apart from prayers? What makes you so close to Father Aboud? I'm sure it's that connection with Lebanon, with First God. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yes, absolutely. Father Aboud's from First God like myself.
Yeah.
But as it happened, my father and his late father, Allah yarhamu,
That's a nice story.
They were the best of friends in the village. And, traveling back and forth to Lebanon, and Father Aboud has been to Australia on I think 11 or 12 occasions. We sort of built up a friendship, and it's so funny that we are best of friends, similar to how my father and his late father were. And certainly his sense of humor is something that I enjoy. His love for a good meal. I think we spend most of our time talking about, what are we going to have for lunch today or dinner,
Yeah.
So we try, when we're in Lebanon, we try and drag Monsignor Stren Frangier with us to some of those meals.
Yeah.
But, Father Aboud, his service to the community, and I have so much respect for him, knows no bounds. And I think you being from Zgharta Sarkis, and also close to the community there, how much time and effort he places to the community.
Especially these days.
Yeah, especially these days. So, when we're together, we enjoy similar things in life. We enjoy walking, walking for exercise. So when he's in Australia, I always enjoy taking him up to the Blue Mountains to do the walk down the stairs and through the valley. And we walk through the botanical gardens and places like that. I think these are sort of memories that he keeps.
And he's got a very good sense of humor too.
Absolutely.
So he's a good company.
Oh, he's very, very enjoyable to be with. And, it's not inconceivable that I actually spend time with him every day when he's in Sydney. And similarly, when I'm in Lebanon, yeah.
But is there anything you would like to say that we didn't cover in this interview, which went very quickly?
Look, I'm sure we'll have an opportunity for us to speak again as we progress with the development of the aged care centre, and as we have some experience under our belt in respect to what happens with home care. I mean, I certainly would like to come back and be able to advise on the progress of some of the projects that I'm intimately involved in. But I will, when I go back, we have our next sort of Maronite Care board meeting. If there's some opportunities for other people from Maronite Care to come and speak, I think that would be invaluable to the community. Certainly the chair, and certainly the Deacon Joseph Matu would be an ideal person to have here to talk about those services.
Barry, I want to thank you for your valuable time, information, and I wish you every success in what you're doing, especially because you're helping others in the community. And if we all help each other, we can go forward in so many ways. Good on you, Barry. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Sarkis. Shukran, Habibi.
Thank you.